Well, I got to admit, I didn't think they would go through with it, but they did, which means literally the gloves are off. They have declared their overt tyranny, and they're basically looking at you and me in America and saying, and just what do you think you're going to do about it?
I don't like it.
What don't you like?
Indians on the raid generally hide their dead. And if they don't care anything about us knowing, it only spells one thing. They ain't afeard of us following or of us catching up with them either.
You can back out any time you want, Nesby.
Ethan, I didn't say that. Didn't say such.
We know that the political establishment, and I would say the Democrat political establishment, is a master at projection. In other words, what they accuse their opponents of, what they say their opponents are up to and going to do, is in reality tipping their hand of what they're up to, what they're doing. Remember, we couldn't have Donald Trump as a president. He would be an authoritarian. He would be a tyrant. He would destroy our democracy, and he would be gonna do this my way. He would use the courts to oppress, crush, and destroy his political enemies. He would weaponize the alphabet agencies, like Barack Obama did to get rid of the Tea Party and certain conservative journalists when the IRS would freeze accounts or just randomly audit people. During the Obama administration, when I was on the air in Orlando, Florida, was every day being monitored by a group called Floridians for Obama. It was amazing. I got audited 3 times in 1 year by the Internal Revenue Service. It was fun, let me tell you. So everything that they accused that Donald Trump would do, they do. And now, as we have heard the charges over and over, in particular from people like Nancy Botox Pelosi and Chuck E. Cheese Schumer, that Donald Trump would just throw out the Constitution. Well, that's exactly what's happened here, and I'm going to explain why. On the one hand, Alvin Bragg, he had no choice at this point. And this is what the Democrats do when their back is against the wall, when they have really been caught at it. They don't go away. They double down. Now, I'm going to tell you why they're doubling down here. At this point, we took an early victory lap, believing that the grand jury looked at all of this and said, ain't no way. We know that it's been a Soviet Union policy. Show us the man, we'll find the crime. We can indict a ham sandwich, you have heard members even here in the United States say regarding the grand jury process, because there is no defense in a grand jury room, and there is no counter evidence presented in a grand jury proceeding. And out of 23 grand jurors, only 12, have to come back with a yes, let's indict. And so apparently that's what's happened, and they've dreamed up 34 charges. Now, again, we don't know the charges yet. Why? Because we're going to do a little political grandstanding. We got a whole weekend news cycle now. Number one, Donald Trump indicted. And so everybody that hates Trump, in particular on the left, they are euphoric and orgasmic over this. You know that. And the news cycle's all week long, and I just want to prepare you, so watch something else. Baseball season has started. I'll be watching the Mets tonight. I won't be watching the evening news or any podcasts. I'll be watching the Mets dismantle the Florida Marlins, or the Miami Marlins, I guess I should say better. Because you know what the news cycle is going to be all weekend long. We got him, 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 we got him. However, even over at CNN, they are conceding, now that the indictment has been officially handed down, this is a beyond weak case. So why this one? Well, again, You've got District Attorney Bragg, who's funded by Soros, because that's the new Soros way to gain access and influence over the United States, was to focus on local races. And he is funding all types of wingnuts all around the country. It's the only way you can explain in places like small towns and medium-sized towns, especially in the South, that you've got defund the police movements going on, and you've got, drag queens, being allowed to go into schools, and 45-year-old men wave their junk in front of the face of a 10-year-old girl, and DAs there that defend that and push back on not even necessarily what you would call conservative people in those towns, just, normal, traditional people that don't understand what's happening to their town. Soros is funding all of these local elections literally to take America over one town at a time. I mean, it's a long strategy, but it's a brilliant strategy. And so Alvin Bragg ran on one issue. I'm going to get Donald Trump. I'm going to get Donald Trump. And it really doesn't matter at this point that we can prove that he has, basically allowed criminals to walk free in New York City. Basically hitting somebody over the head with a hammer. You're really probably, you're going to be all right. You won't go to jail for that. It's just unconscionable that he has just allowed crime to just explode in New York City because he's been singular focused. Get Donald Trump, get Donald Trump, get Donald Trump. Millions of dollars of taxpayer money at his disposal. And so there's that. This case, though, on the one hand, you think, oh, come on. All right. He paid some money so that this woman wouldn't tell everybody when he was running for president that they had had an affair. He didn't want the scandal. Even if that were true, but Trump denies it. We have documents that Steve Cohen made these payments himself, informed Trump of those payments after the fact. We even have David Cohen, writing a letter basically saying neither Trump nor the Trump organization had any idea that I was making these payments to Stormy Daniels. Of course, now he's recanting all of that, but nonetheless, we have signed documents, and he is at best a compromised, convicted, lying star witness. So you got all that. But what you got here is a case people can kind of wrap their heads around. One of the I know we get so frustrated. We think of, how do some of these real criminals in Washington, the James Comeys, the Hillary Clintons, Hunter Biden, how do these people walk around free? Why aren't they in a jail cell? Why do they get to do book tours and basically walk around as if their defecation doesn't stink when they're the real criminals? I'll give you one Hillary example. Whitewater. The American people couldn't really understand it, couldn't follow it, couldn't quite wrap their minds around it. What did Bill Clinton get impeached for? Sex with Monica Lewinsky. The American people can wrap their heads around that. And the American people can wrap their heads around Trump and Stormy Daniels. And it doesn't matter, and I know this is going to drive some conservatives that are watching this nuts, it doesn't matter that technically, legally, this New York district attorney doesn't have the jurisdiction to elevate a quote-unquote state crime to a federal level, because what he's doing, paying people, non-disclosure to keep their mouths shut, is not illegal. And even in New York, if it was done in a way where there was a, quote, bookkeeping error, it's a misdemeanor and it's a fine. The fact that he is elevating it to a federal charge because of federal elections, saying that they purposely documented this wrong in the ledger to misdirect campaign funds. A New York district attorney does not have the authority to do that because it now becomes a federal crime, and there should be a federal prosecutor here. But the reason they're pushing this now, because I think a week ago they were jarred back that the grand jury wasn't buying it, and the American people were coming out and saying, whoa, 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 whoa. But I think the powers that be, i.e., inside the Biden White House, and the powers that be within the Democratic Party decided, you know what, we really do need to go all in on this Trump thing, because the chances are the American people won't really understand what we're trying to do to him in Georgia. They really, we really can't make the whole Mar-a-Lago raid thing a thing anymore because we got, Joe Biden, had records in his garage. And the January 6th thing isn't quite panning out like they hoped. And now that the other thousands of hours of the tapes are available, one thing is definitely for certain: if he were ever to be indicted on a January 6th charge, then all of those tapes and everything that went on would become available and would be, used as evidence, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they picked something that the American people could wrap their heads around: sex. Sex. Now again, Trump said it didn't happen. Stormy Daniels has said it didn't happen until she, Michael Avenatti got his hands on her and, oh, we can make a lot of money. And then he ended up ripping her off. It's just, they are purposely not telling us what all the charges are so that we have a whole weekend news cycle to just let this build. A president's been indicted. A president's been indicted. He's an indicted president. Even if they can't get a conviction, which everybody says this is a weak case, I'm not so sure they can't get a conviction. It all is going to depend on where it gets tried. On the base of it, a judge should just throw this out completely. Probably won't happen because this is Manhattan we're talking about. And the chances of Donald Trump getting a fair and impartial jury in Manhattan are about 0 to none to zilch to 0. And what this is at this point is they have decided they are going to take down, once and for all, Donald Trump. And it's so obvious through all of this, he has gotten stronger. He made a 10-point jump in the polls. He is crushing Ron DeSantis, who, by the way, came right out and said, I will not work with the authorities of New York to extradite Donald Trump. Yeah, well, of course not, because Trump's going to voluntarily surrender anyway. So, I'll get into Ron DeSantis and what a rat weasel wimp he is in another commentary. But you have every Republican is now united around how awful this is. And you have every Democrat talking about no one is above the rule of law, except Hillary, except Hunter. Bill Clinton had to pay $800,000 to Paula Jones to keep her mouth shut. I don't remember him being indicted. Hillary Rodham Clinton actually did use campaign funds to pay for a Steele dossier, which created a false narrative of Donald Trump. We used to call that bearing false witness, and for years, our government was tied up in an investigation into collusion, which never happened. Did Hillary see the inside of a jail cell? No, she paid a $1,500 fine. No, this is third world country stuff. We've lost our moral authority to be able to tell the rest of the world that we're not a dictatorship, we're not an authoritarianism. We are now. You have an American president, Joe Biden. Trust me, we can get rid of that pipeline, that Nord Stream pipeline, if we want to. Trust me. Trust me. Then when it blows up, I didn't do it. He tells you just enough to let you know what he's going to do. And they're doing all this now in our face. And they're basically saying, what you going to do about it? What you going to do about it? What you going to do about it? Do you understand that they have absolutely now full-blown show themselves, and they're letting you know, come hell, come high water, we're going to make this stick. and we're going to twist the law right in front of your very eyes. And just like a good pledge at a fraternity, you're going to bend over and say, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" Now, what do we do about it? Well, that is where I want to give you some optimistic news. I don't want to leave this dark, grim, or with anyone being able to accuse me that we were plotting something that we shouldn't. There are some things that we can take a look at and say, ooh, the pushback has worked. The pushback literally did make a difference. Look at what's happening with regard to the pushback across the country against this just out of control wokeism, in particular in transgender legislation that is meant now to stop the mutilation of children, to stop the sexualization of children. And this isn't just quote unquote right-wing Trump people. This is liberals. This is Black America. This is Hispanic America. This is America coming together on an issue saying, you are not going to do this to our children. You are not going to guilt us. You are not going to scare us in this culture war. We've had enough. We push back on CRT. We have pushed back on what's going on in our schools and these teachers that are just there not to educate but indoctrinate. And as we bring these things to light, as people see it, there is pushback. And we need to bring to light what's happening here. And I promise you, people will see it. And we do have the power to influence. We do have the power to raise our voices and bring real awareness, which at the end of the day, though that there are always on the left, a few ideologues that really drive this stuff, the vast majority of the politicians and those on Capitol Hill, the vast majority of them, they're just opportunists, but they're wimps. And when they feel the blowback from the American people, they really do go to the powers that be. So we can't do this. The people are getting mad. Now you'll have a few committed wingnuts that'll, oh, we're absolutely going to do this. But once the majority within the party up on Capitol Hill gets a taste of the American people and gets scared of their polling, that they might face real brushback from their constituents, etc., etc., etc. That's when they begin to weaken and crumble, because they're weak, they're wimpish, and when you start applying the pressure, they cave. So have to keep the pressure on, keep the light shining forth. Because like I said, as we have brought certain things to light, we are seeing things turned around. But make no mistake, the White House is in on this. They're absolutely in on this, because Joe Blow from Idaho knows he can't beat Trump. And by doing all this, they're actually, in the primary season, they're doing Donald Trump a huge favor, because they are solidifying in the minds of every conservative, Trump is the guy that they're scared of. Now, what they'll try to do is they'll try to get the average Republican and conservative voter to think, Donald Trump is just never-ending drama. And even though he gets vindicated of all this stuff, it's just one drama after another drama after another drama. What you have to remind those Republican friends of yours that feel that way, yeah, so what's the solution? To let the establishment tell us who our pick is going to be? We tried that with McCain. We tried that with Romney. We got that with George Bush. Enough is enough is enough. Stand firm, push back, and don't put up with, believe, or propagate the narrative.